So ladies and gentlemen, that covers it for the speed graph. And now we understand how to make smooth animations with the speed graph. But what about the value graph? What about the second type? How do we use it and how does it work? Well, the value graph, to basically understand it, is simply a graph that showcases the change in your position according to time. Meaning, for example, if we had a box moving from the left side to the right side, and we had it moving in a certain, time frame, the graph would simply just show me that at a certain point, this movement began, and at a certain point it ended. And in between, it would just track the position changes. You guys understand the way that positioning works in After Effects and Premiere Pro and editing programs is based on the canvas, right? You've got 1080 pixels by 1080 by 1920, and they are all, individual pixels. So they are all, your position is based on which pixel you are in. And for that reason, what After Effects basically does is it shows you which position this, let's say, rectangle is in according to which time. Let's say at 5 seconds it is in this position, so that's pixel 500. In 10 seconds it is at this position, so that's pixel 1000, right? So on and so forth. This being said, let's go ahead and dive right in and take some ideas as to how the value graph works. Let's also understand how we can use it to make smooth animations and when exactly we're going to be using it and how it's useful. All right, let's go ahead and get right into it. So over here, I'm back inside of After Effects. I just basically made my animation smooth again just to show you guys this example, and we're going to go through it one more time. But real quick, just to let you guys know, if you don't understand the value graph that much, it's totally okay. The speed graph is what you guys are going to be using like 90% of the time, to be honest. Because usually what you want to do is you want to smoothen out an animation. You want to make it fast in the beginning and slow, so on and so forth. And most of After Effects is like, we're going to just be less focused on animating and more so focused on making visual scenes that are appealing. Because animating is super useful, but there's a point where the only thing you can improve, like there's a point where the animation just becomes so good, but the only thing you could go from there, like the only way you can improve is you can make things look better. And that's really where After Effects is going to stand out. That's where we're going to stand out as video editors. So we're just going to be learning the fundamentals of animation. And in the next few courses, we're going to be learning advanced animations in After Effects. We're going to be learning how to use velocity, how to make smooth animations, how to make movement animations, so on and so forth. We're also going to practice it, but we're mainly going to be relying on stylization to make these animations look good. This being said, this course is going to teach you a lot about animating, and the other courses in Ultimate Editors are going to teach you so much about like animating, so much. So don't even worry about it. All right. Let's get right into the value graph. So the first thing I want to do is, how do I access the value graph? All I have to do is select my keyframes, go into my graph, and just right click and click on, instead of speed graph, value graph. This is, by the way, that what we mentioned in the last course. This is how you access either the speed graph or the value graph, depending on which one you want. All you got to do is right click and click on edit speed graph if I want the speed graph, right click and edit value graph if I want the value graph. Now, one thing you guys are going to notice, I'm going to make this graph a bit bigger so you guys can see it, and I'm just going to zoom in a little bit more. One thing you guys are going to notice, I want you to take a look on the left side and what's being shown. In the speed graph, we notice that a default animation starts at a speed of 0 and then gets to a point where the speed is peak and it's the same peak speed and then slows back down to 0. Whereas if I were to right click and see the value graph, now my values on the left side have changed. Now my values are starting at 450. That is basically the position at which my rectangle is in. Remember guys, I told you the value graph shows you the position at which your object is in on the frame. So what this is basically telling me, okay, let's ignore the the green line. Let's just focus on the red one. I'll explain what the green line is in a second. What this is basically telling me is that at this point over here, and everything before that, since there's no animation, you notice my rectangle is in the same place. The place in which it is in is 450 pixels. Now, I'll explain what the red line and green line work and how they work in just a second, but let's just focus on the red line for now, okay? So it's almost at 450 pixels. Now, the moment my animation starts, it is at 450 pixels. And the moment my animation ends, it is at 1500 pixels. So you guys understand that, right? The moment the animation starts, it's at 450 pixels. It's that place over here on the left side on the screen. The moment my animation ends, it's at 1500, that place on the right side. So far this graph is showing us a moment in time plus which value of the position it is in. So over here, in this moment of time, the position is 450, and in this moment of time, it's 1500. This being said, what's happening in the middle is it's basically going from 450 to 1500, okay? I'll quickly explain this a bit more so you can really wrap your head around this, okay? So what's happening in between here is we're going from 450. Few seconds later, we're now at 550. A few more seconds later, we're now at 800. A bit later, we're now at 1100, all the way up to 1500. We are essentially animating our way from the value of 450 to 1500 because that is the position. Now, how exactly does that work? Well, if we were to look at the position over here, the position function, we're back inside of our timeline. The way that the position works inside of both Premiere Pro and After Effects in any program is it works based on numbers, meaning if I move it to the left side, the value decreases, right? If I keep moving this all the way until this thing is 0, it's going to be on the edge over here. So the edge here is 0. Now, the more I move it to the right side, the more this value increases, all the way until, you guessed it, 1920. Why is that? Because the position is based on the anchor point that's in the center over here. So ultimately what this position value is telling me is the value at which the anchor point is on the screen. Now, that being said, since our composition is 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, if I place my anchor point on the 1920th pixel, that's right on the edge. Whereas if I place it on the, let's say, the 460th pixel, that's somewhere like on the left side. Now, what I'm basically telling After Effects over here is I'm keyframing its position and saying, in this moment, we are at 460 pixels, all right? And at that moment, we are now at 1000 and let's say 450. So we're going from 450 to 1450. What that tells the program is that if we were to just close our eyes for a moment and imagine the rectangle at 450 pixels, let's say I was measuring from the left side to the right side and saying on the left side it's 0 and on the right side it's 2000 almost, okay? At 450, it's going to be somewhere right around here. So it's going to go 0 to 450 here. That's where it starts. At 1500, it's going to be somewhere around this point over here, right? That's where it ends. That's exactly what's happening. We're telling After Effects at this moment, the position value is 450. And at that moment, the position value is 1500. Now I actually messed this up, so I need to make sure that I get these correct, okay? And that being said, what After Effects basically does is it says, okay, so the X value is changing, going from 450 to 1500. So I'm going to position it over here at 450, position it here at 1500. And in between those, I'm going to steadily increase the position according to the time I have, in order that at 2 seconds, it's at 450, and at 5 seconds, it's at 1500. It's going to do the calculations, and it's going to say, okay, if at 2 seconds, it has to be at 450, and at 5 seconds at 1500, it means that every second I have to move this many pixels. I think it's like 400 pixels or something. And over the course of these 3 seconds, I'm going to reach the 1500. Okay, and that's exactly what's happening. That's why when we shorten our keyframe, we give the movement less time. Now After Effects goes, okay, now it's starting at 450, and then just 2 seconds later, it has to be 1500. I better speed this thing up so it goes faster. And that's why if I extend it, it goes slower, because now it's like I've got more time, so I can cover less speed, okay? Now, that is how the position works, all right? Now check this out. Inside of the value graph, you guys see 2 graphs, the green one and the red one. What these basically are your X position and your Y position. So since our rectangle here is not moving on a Y value, it's not moving up and down, it's just moving left and right, we're only changing the X position. If you want to see both of these separately, this is a very useful function. You can right-click your position and click on Separate Dimensions. This allows you guys to see the X position and the Y position and keyframe them individually, which is super useful for making very complex animations. Now, we're probably not going to have any courses which cover this. Like, we're probably not going to be using this in any editing style. I'm just trying to think of like, which editing style do we use this in? You guys will probably use this when it comes to 3D camera movement. There's a good chance you guys might use that. And 3D scenery. But besides that, I think there's very rare cases where we individually animate the X and the Y value. Unless we're really focusing on making some complex animations, which we will at the end of this course. I'll teach you guys how to make a very complex animation, and that's going to be like one of the most complex animations you guys will ever need to make over the next few courses. So you'll be ready for, easier animations. But that being said, you probably aren't going to be using this as much. But when you separate them, you basically allow yourself to see the X position separately and the Y position separately. Now, since we don't have an animation on the Y value, We keyframed it at 742 and it ends at 742, so there's no difference. If I were to change it here, you guys will notice the end keyframe varies. Why? Because now we're starting at 742 and we're ending it at a different value. But that being said, I'm not going to do that, okay? Now, if we go to our exposition, how do we, use the value graph to actually change the speed of the animation? Well, that's where it gets really nice. We can basically select this entire animation, and the first step is clicking F9. Because that's going to show us the sliders and that's going to allow us to change everything that we want. So this being said, when we click on F9, it smoothens out, eases the animation. Now, what just happened? It went from a robotic straight line to something a bit smoother. What exactly is happening? Let's start interpreting the graph a bit more so we understand it. Well, what's happening here is instead of jumping from 400 to 1500 in a straight line, instead of going, okay, every second I need to move 300 pixels, second one 300 pixels, second two 300 pixels. Instead of going in a robotic way, it's now easing its way into it. It's saying, okay, for the first second I'm going to move like 100 pixels, right? So you guys can notice over here in the beginning it's slower, right? It's moving 450, and over this period of time it's moved 450 to 500, right? Once it hits like 600, it takes off and it's pretty straight. Right, it's pretty straight. And then towards the end, instead of just instantly like ending towards the line, so instead of being 300 pixels per second, 300 pixels per second, and then boom, just straight again, the value is now going 1200, 1300, 1350, 320, and then finally hitting 340, right? 400. That being said, it's basically easing its way into it. So instead of jumping from 450, 550, 650, it's jumping 450, 470, 490, 500, 550, it's slowly easing its way into it. And the way that we can use this is we can make the values, like the progression of the values, how fast the values are increasing in the beginning, we can make that slower by moving the slider forward. What does this basically mean? This basically means that now it's going 400, it's starting 450, 450, 460, 470, 480, 490, 500. It's going 550 all the way to 600 over here. 600 to 800 over here, so it's a bit faster and a bit faster and a bit faster. What this basically means is if we just focus on the bottom one, I'm going to make this one invisible. It starts slow and then it ends fast. Let me quickly show this to you guys. It's starting slow and then it's ending fast. Because what's basically happening is over this period of time, we cover a small amount of values. Whereas over this period of time, we progress a way bigger amount of values. So that's what's happening, okay? So we're moving slow and then fast, and that's how you use the value graph. Now, this being said, if I did the exact opposite, if I kept it rough in the beginning, so it starts off quickly, but I slowed it down at the end, and I created a shape like this. What's happening here is we're starting with quick values. We're jumping big values, but then at the end, we're easing off and we're slowing down the values. We're covering less distance, and we're slowing down, and that's what you get. A nice and slow animation like that, okay? Now, this being said, what if I extended this and I extended this as well? So what's happening over here? Well, what's happening over here is basically we're slowing our way into the values. So we're slowing down the entry, slowly increasing those values, but then we have a moment in the middle where we increase very quickly. Like it's almost straight, which means we're going from, like, check this out. We're going from 500 to 700 almost in like all of these frames. Now, in the same amount of frames, we go from 700 to 1300. So in a certain distance, we're going 200 pixels. And then in the same distance, we're going like 1000 pixels. So check, like the difference in speed we have to go is insane. And then at the end, we're going 200 pixels again. And this is what we end up. We end up with start slow, quick, fast, and then end slow. Okay. Now, so far, you guys are going to be like, well, Joseph, that's cool, but we could do that with a speed graph. How is this different in any way? I'll show you exactly how this is different, and this is where After Effects excels more than Premiere Pro. What Premiere Pro does is it combines the value graph with the speed graph. It's a very annoying concept to understand, but you're very limited when it comes to animating in Premiere Pro for that reason. You can't actually fully control the animation, and neither can you fully control the speed, because they're both tied together. Instead, here what we can do is, now that we've changed the value, check this out. I can actually select my first frame, okay? And I can, instead of have it go from 400 and start increasing up, I can have it go down lower. So remember, because the vertical values actually correlate to our position on the screen, if I lower this down, like so, if I take my slider and drop it down, now what's happening? Now my box has to go from 400 down to 300. So it has to move backwards, and then it's going to launch itself forward, which actually gives me this cool effect. Did you see what just happened? Instead of it going straight up, it's going back a bit and then launching itself forward, which is why we love the value graph so much. This is why it's super useful, because it allows us to make those edges more loose. We can make them so much more elastic. So if you guys want elastic effects, if you guys want a very smooth effect, then this is how you achieve it with the value graph. Again, what's happening here is we're starting 450 and then we're going back because we dropped the graph, right? We dropped below 400. As we go below 400, we're going more to the left side. We were going more to the left side and then we're launching ourselves to the right side. And we could do the same thing on this edge as well. We can bring this up like so. Now it has to extend the 1400, so it has to go further off to the right side and then return. And this is the result you end up with. You get a cool launch like that, right? Now we can actually smoothen this out even more by extending this and check. We can make some really cool animations with this. We could launch this off like that. We can make some very, very complex animations, and it's all about interpreting the value graph. So this being said, let's go ahead and practice this on the rest of our shape layers, just to make sure that we have grasped a very good understanding of the value graph, and then we can move on to movement animations, okay? Let's select our second position animation here with the rectangle. For this one, I want you guys to learn the 3 kinds of value graph shapes, which you're going to be using the most of the time. You could just select both of these and click on F9 to smoothen it off. If you guys can't access your sliders and it's annoying, all you have to do is select this and then click on that. It's going to separate the dimensions. What this means is you've got your X and Y position. You can also, just right click here and separate dimensions. And then you just select it and click on F9 and you should have the sliders and you should be able to change it. I think you can only change the value of dimensions that are tied when you separate them in After Effects. Let's make this one if you want to make it a quick entry and a slow end, all you have to do is move your back slider all the way out. What this means is it starts quick and then slows down. Okay, and so if we focus on the top rectangle, it starts quick and then slows down. If you want a slow entry and quick exit, then you move this slider all the way back and then you move this one more forward. This makes it start very slow and then quick exit like so. Okay, so slow exit. Quick exit like this. And if you want a slow start and slow exit and then quick in the middle, then all you have to do is just create this, what we call an S graph, like that. Okay, so smooth entry, quick middle, and then smooth exit. Okay, let's go ahead and do this for some others. So for example, over here, we've got scale. So the scale is going to be, obviously, we don't need to separate the dimensions for this. We can, but we don't need to. The scale just works, based on a value. So we could just select both of these. Click on F9, it's going to smoothen it out. If we want a quick entry, we just move the back slide like this, and it's going to start quick and then slow down. And if we want a slow entry and a quick exit, we can just move the forward slider like this. Like that, nice and simple. And then for the rotation, the same exact thing. For the rotation, once again, now we've got them both selected, so that's not going to work. But if we just select one of them, you guys can see it starts at this value and ends at this value. We could select it, click on F9. And if we want it to start, rotate back a little bit and then rotate. Let's do this. Let's have it start. Let's kind of have it rotate back and then spin and then rotate back again. The way we do this is, first of all, we can smoothen this out a little bit more like that. And then we just raise this up so that it has to jump up above the current value and then drop back down. And we raise this down so that it has to jump below the current value and jump back out. So check this out. So it spins back and then spins back. There we go. Nice and simple. And we're going to do the same thing with this one, just a way more rough version. Select it and click on F9. And we're just going to make this super rough like that. And we're going to make this super rough like that. Okay. So this jumps back and then boom, spins and then jumps back. Nice and simple. And with this being said, guys, that is how you use your your value graph. Once again, both value graph and speed graph are super useful. We're going to be using them a lot, but mostly we're going to be using the speed graph when it comes to complex animations. That being said, we first have to make sure that you guys understand how animating works in After Effects. For that reason, we're going to be diving into the next few episodes where we're basically getting into animations, okay? We're going to start learning a bit more about movement animations and how to specifically make realistic movement animations. So check this out. What's about to happen in the next few episodes, it's a bit more advanced. We're going to start with movement animations, and movement animations are pretty simple, but then we're going to make them realistic. And when it comes to making them realistic, we're going to learn how to combine different animations together in order to make them really good. So in the next episode, I've got a few cool movement animations we're going to be learning, that are going to really push your animation boundaries. So if you guys are able to understand speed graph, value graph, and how animating works in After Effects, it's time to start putting this stuff into practice. And then we're going to tie it all together with a very cool actionable step. So with that being said, let's dive right into the next episode where we're going to be practicing our movement animation. I'll see you guys there.